The verse of the day is John 13:35, and it says, "Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples." To paint the scene for you guys, Jesus is at the Last Supper with his disciples, and the Last Supper was what it says, the Last Supper. It was their last meal with Jesus before Jesus was taken away to then be crucified. So Jesus is giving his last bit of information. He's trying to tell them everything that they need to know so that they will feel successful when he leaves. And so in this conversation, he tells his disciples about this new commandment. The verse before today's verse says, "So now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other." And then today's verse, "Your love will prove that you are my disciples." I love how he says, "Just as I have loved you," because the only way that we know how to love each other well is because he first loved us. And that's the order. And that's why when it comes to learning how to become like Jesus, you have to learn to allow his love in first. Because the only way you're going to learn how to give that same love out is if you know what it feels like and means to be loved by him first. Because he equips you with the love necessary to love others well. This is why God has to be first. God has to be before your husband and wife. God has to be before your children, before your best friend, before everything. Because if you put God first, you will love the people in your life better, because you're going to be learning from the purest version of love, and then you can love the rest of the people in your life that much better. Because think about it, the more you grow with God, the more you develop relationship, the more you seek his love, the more your heart gets transformed from the inside out. So now you're going to see yourself start to change in ways that maybe you never knew possible. So your grace for other people will be different because you now know how God can change you when you didn't think it was possible. So the same love and the same freedom he gave you is the same love and same freedom he can give to someone else. And now you're a vessel that God can show his love through. The thing about the Holy Spirit, whenever I think about how you accept the Holy Spirit, you accept Jesus into your heart, you now have the Spirit of God now living in your heart. So the Holy Spirit is going to illuminate things that you need to grow in, that you need to face, that you need to heal in. And it will actually expand your love for other people because it's God's heart now living within your heart. So the same love that God has for other people is going to slowly trickle into your heart the more you pursue his heart, the more you pursue relationship with him. The verse that says you are not fighting against flesh and blood, you are fighting against principalities, darkness, spiritual things, strongholds, rings true to today's verse, because when you start to see you get set free from things you didn't know you could, you understand it's not a flesh battle. You understand that it's a spiritual battle. We are fighting more than just humans, people. There are things that drive people to do things. There are evil things that drive us to do things. The same way that the Holy Spirit can reside in us and help us be vessels of love is the same way that the devil can reside in people and cause evil things to happen in the world. And this is a big reason why bad things happen in the world, is because there's evil running rampant through people. But the good news is there's love running rampant through people too, and can be through you, and can continue to be as we learn how to be more like Jesus, as we die to our flesh and choose love even when it's hard. If I've learned anything in living with people now, having 5 new roommates and being surrounded by community, this past year was the first year that I really became connected to church in a new way. It's the best thing you'll ever experience, but it's also the most humbling thing you'll ever experience, because the more you're around people, the more things get exposed, the more triggers get hit, and the more you have to run to God to heal those places. But that's the beautiful thing about community, is it refines you and it forces you to be sanctified and renewed, and to run to Jesus, to choose love when it doesn't feel good. It says your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. It doesn't say that we have to have perfect love. It doesn't say that we need to never mess up or never have an ounce of irritation or resentment or unforgiveness. It says that your love for one another will prove to the world. So if we strive to love one another, if we do our best to get love from God so that we can love others well, that's how you're going to become a progressing disciple. That's how you're going to become more like Jesus on a daily basis. This looks like loving people when you don't feel like it. This looks like running to God when you feel irritation, judgment, resentment, and asking Him for a fresh perspective, asking Him to help you see people through His eyes. And He actually can change your heart to give you love for people that you didn't used to have love for. This is what the power of God can do. He can actually give you more love and help you transform your heart and help you have more love for one another. And by you depending on God in any area where you don't have love for people, those are the very areas where you're going to see the most growth. In my Bible study, we're starting this new program called Practicing the Way. And it's basically learning how to become like Jesus, learning how to practice the right way. And it talks about how really following the way of Jesus is learning how to be an apprentice of Him. And what is an apprentice? An apprentice is learning the skills of someone, wanting to be like someone. And they highlight how there's 3 main points to being an apprentice to Jesus. The first is to be with Him. In order to become like someone or to learn their skills, you have to be with them, be around them. And that looks like developing relationship with Him, spending time with Him every day, like you're doing with this challenge. The second point was become like Jesus. How do you become like Jesus? You lean on Him for His strength when we feel weak. We run to Him when we have moments where we don't want to follow or do what He says. How do we become like Him? We bear the fruit of His Spirit. What is the fruit of His Spirit? Galatians 5:22. But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. If we're lacking any of those areas, that's where we can run to God, ask the Holy Spirit to make us strong so that we can continue to become more like Him. And the third point was do as He did. So learning how to live a life that reflects the way Jesus lived His life. The way He loved people is how we're called to love people. The more you follow that pattern, the more love you're going to have for one another. Okay?